Hi there. So in this video, we're going to take a look at the fourth FRQ prep question for Unit 2 demand. And this one comes from a micro question from a while ago as well. So it says, utility and price elasticity of demand are important concepts in explaining consumer behavior. Okay, well, thank you, College Board, for that. That's not really a question, but whatever. Define marginal utility. So sometimes, that's the whole question. Sometimes the AP will just give you a question and say, define what this thing is. And what they're really looking for is, do you really know what it is, as opposed to, you can fudge your way through it. You'll see fudging there. So marginal means additional. So we'll write additional. And utility means satisfaction. And we're going to add just a phrase to that to make clear to the grader we know what we're talking about. Additional satisfaction from, and I'm going to abbreviate additional here, additional consumption. And that way we know it's really the additional satisfaction that you get from consuming an additional unit of a good, right? So you could also say from one more unit of a good, or from a certain amount of a good, or something along those lines. So it's critical, though, that you include these additionals, because students that year and over the years have basically confused marginal utility and total utility. They're very different concepts, right? Total utility is the total amount of satisfaction you get. It's the cumulative, the aggregate. And marginal literally means the additional. So when we talk about marginal cost and marginal benefit, we think on the margin. We think about the additional, the next unit. And that's really an important idea in economics. All right, let's take a look at B. The table below shows the quantities, prices, and marginal utilities of two goods, fudge and coffee, which Mandy buys. Good for Mandy, right? She's living her best life. And then we get all that. If Mandy spends all her money on these two goods, should Mandy buy more fudge and less coffee, buy more coffee and less fudge, or maintain, explain? Now, remember, when we talked about utility, we were talking about that you have to fulfill the marginal utility of good A divided by the price of A has to be equal to the marginal utility of good B over the price of B. And that's our utility maximization rule. If these two values are equal and you're using your whole budget, then you're okay. Now, we're going to solve that and figure that out from her data here. So look at fudge for a second. And what's the marginal utility of the last pound of fudge? Well, 12. And how much did she pay for it? Well, she paid 2. And then we've got coffee. We've got, so this is fudge. And then coffee, she got 20 marginal utility. And we'll divide that by what she paid, which was 4. And this is 6 and 5. And are those two numbers equal? Come on now, mathlete. I know you got this. No, they're not. 6 is bigger than 5. And so we would say she should consume, right? Think of our little Pac-Man here. More fudge, right? Because the 6 is bigger than the 5. So she should consume more fudge, less coffee. Right? Get off the caffeine, Mandy. Although I guess fudge has it too. Because, and it does say, explain, and you can literally say 6 is bigger than 5. Now, if you've written all this out, then you're really golden here. If you were to write out because 6 is greater than 5, but actually you wrote 6 is greater than 4 because you can't do math, and then you didn't include all this other information, you would get this problem wrong. So it's critically important that you show how you got that 6 is bigger than 5. Even if it's just, setting up this stuff here that I've done here, you need to show your calculation. Okay, now part C. Assume that consumers always buy 20 of every month, regardless of the price, for good R, whatever R is. What's the numerical value of price elasticity of demand for good R? Now, right off the bat, they're telling you the consumers don't change their quantities, right? So there isn't any elasticity, right? There is none. It's a perfectly vertical line of demand. And so we should just know for C1 that it's 0. There's no elasticity at all. If the government implements a $2 per unit tax, how much of it will the seller pay? Well, if you think back to what we said about tax incidence, and we said that whichever one is more elastic escapes paying the tax, right? And if you're really inelastic, then you bear the burden. Well, if you're perfectly inelastic, like consumers are in this one, all right, because if you think about a graph of this, the quantity, they always buy 20, right? That's the demand curve. It doesn't matter what the price is, they always buy 20, then that means that the demand is the perfectly inelastic. They're going to pay all of it, right? So they bear the entire burden, the seller bears 0 of the burden because the buyer bears all $2 of it. Okay. So again, this question is saying how much does the seller pay, and they don't pay any of it because the buyers are perfectly inelastic. All right. Hopefully that helps you. I'll see you next time.